When people talk about the greatest coaching staffs of all time, the 1990 New York Giants are routinely in the conversation. Some argue that they're the greatest coaching staff of the post-merger era, and some even argue that they're the greatest coaching staff of all time. That includes the 1958 New York Giants, who had a champion head coach in Jim Lee Howell, had Tom Landry as their offensive coordinator, and had Vince Lombardi as their defensive coordinator. Any way you want to slice it, the 1990 Giants were stacked, and their coaching staff was a big reason why they won Super Bowl 25 that year. Obviously, leading the charge at head coach, you had Bill Parcells, a future Hall of Famer. You had Bill Belichick as the defensive coordinator, who will wind up in the Hall of Fame when his career ends, and might even go down as the greatest coach in the history of the sport. You had Tom Coughlin as the wide receivers coach, who would later win 2 Super Bowls as the head coach of the Giants, and who will likely wind up in the Hall of Fame. Then you had Ron Earhart as the offensive coordinator, who was the head coach of the Patriots in the late 70s and early 80s, and had 2 winning records in 3 seasons at the helm. And you had a bunch of other guys who would go on to become head coaches, either at the professional or the college level, such as Romeo Crennel, Al Groh, Ray Hanley, and Charlie Weiss. But as ridiculous as that coaching staff was, it could have been a whole lot better. The Giants had 3 coaches on that staff who are either in or likely will be in the Hall of Fame when all is said and done. But they could have had a 4th, because they were moments away from hiring Bill Cowher to join the staff. And this is the story behind that. To tell this story, we have to go all the way back to 1988, where the Cleveland Browns are taking on the Houston Oilers in the AFC wildcard round. I'm going to talk more about this game in a future video, because something happened in it, particularly with instant replay, that might have been one of the worst calls in NFL history. As for the outcome of this one, the Oilers won it 24-23. For the 4th straight year, Cleveland would lose in the postseason without getting to the Super Bowl. And after Schottenheimer refused to hire an offensive coordinator and give him his play calling duties, Marty Schottenheimer decided to part ways with Art Modell. This is where Bill Cowher comes into the story. Cowher had been on Cleveland's staff for the past 4 seasons, acting as the special teams coach for the first 2 years and the defensive backs coach for the final 2. But now with Schottenheimer gone, Cowher realized the writing was on the wall, and he probably wasn't going to be sticking around in Cleveland much longer. So he began interviewing with other teams to try and find a job elsewhere. As it turns out, there was a vacancy with the New York Giants. The Giants were looking for a new secondary coach after the departure of Len Fontes. New York's secondary was not strong in 1988, as the defense finished in the bottom half of the league in passing yards, touchdowns, and interceptions. However, the real reason Fontes resigned and left his post was so that he could join his brother Wayne, who was the head coach of the Detroit Lions. With this opening, Bill Cowher interviewed for the job. Bill Belichick was the one conducting the interview, and he was so impressed with Cowher that he offered him the job. And Cowher was set on taking this job. But just as he was ready to take the job, another offer came in. It was the Kansas City Chiefs. After Schottenheimer parted ways with the Browns, he became the head coach in Kansas City. To fill out his staff, Schottenheimer hired a lot of guys who were on his staff in Cleveland the year before. Joe Pendry, who was the running backs coach with the Browns, became the offensive coordinator. Howard Mudd returned as the offensive line coach. Tom Pratt returned as the defensive line coach. Dave Redding returned as the strength and conditioning coach, and his younger brother, Kurt Schottenheimer, returned as the special teams coach. Marty Schottenheimer obviously liked Cowher, as he kept him on his staff for 4 years. So Schottenheimer asked Cleveland to come with him to Kansas City. But this wouldn't be as the secondary coach. Instead, this would be as the defensive coordinator. This would be the biggest coaching role of Cowher's career at the time. And so, just moments before signing on to New York's coaching staff, he took the deal with Kansas City to become their defensive coordinator. Obviously, it worked out in the end for everyone. The Giants won the Super Bowl, and 2 seasons later, Cowher would go on to become the head coach of the Steelers in 1992. And the Chiefs, while never making the Super Bowl in Schottenheimer's 10 seasons, were consistently one of the better teams in the AFC. And for those wondering, Bill Belichick would wind up coaching the defensive backs instead for the Giants, serving double duty as the DB's coach and the defensive coordinator. But imagine just how insane a coaching staff with 4 future Hall of Famers on it, along with 8 people who would be or were NFL head coaches at some point, would look. Because as great as the 1990 Giants were from a coaching standpoint, they were this close to being even better. Special thanks to all of our Patreon supporters for helping on the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. See how you can become a patron and request future video topics in the description below.